With Loki Season 2 just 10 days away, I wanted to put out my own recap of the first season of Loki. I'll be breaking down what I feel is the most important parts of each episode. This video will probably be long. I estimate about 25 to 30 minutes, maybe, not totally sure, because I got a lot carried away writing each episode summary. I've made it extremely detailed, so if you don't feel like rewatching Loki Season 1, this is the video to watch. This recap is completely from my memory, believe it or not. I've watched it 100 million times, so I remember almost every detail. Well, I don't want this intro to be any longer, so let's begin. In this episode, Loki escapes with a Tesseract and lands in a desert. After attempting to tell a few people about his glorious purpose, he is interrupted by some employees led by Hunter B-15 from an organization called the Time Variance Authority and taken into their custody. At the headquarters of the TVA, Loki is signed in, put in a prisoner jumpsuit, verifies everything he has ever said, is scanned to be sure he's not a robot, then forced to take a ticket and waits in line, and showed a video about the place he's at. Lastly, he is taken to a literally pointless trial, and the judge, called Ravonna Renslayer, declares Loki guilty. However, an employee, Mobius, steps in, and he takes Loki to a room to interview him. Mobius talks to Loki to better understand his character. Loki is stubborn at first, but eventually agrees to cooperate with Mobius. At the end of the episode, Loki is told by Mobius that someone is killing the employees at the TVA, which turns out to be a different version of Loki, and that Mobius needs Loki's help to track this Loki down, and Loki agrees to help. The episode ends with a hooded figure standing in a grassy field. In this episode, we begin at a Renaissance fair, where some TVA hunters have located the troublesome Loki variant. They walk into a tent, and one of the hunters, called C-20, gets mind-controlled when a mysterious figure touches the hunter's forehead in order to take control. C-20, under the figure's control, fights and kills her hunter buddies. Then the spell is broken, and C-20 falls to the ground unconscious. Then the mysterious figure drags C-20 through one of the TVA's orange time doors. Back at the TVA, an extremely bored and uninterested Loki is being taught the ways of the TVA by a walking, talking clock called Miss Minutes. Loki teases Miss Minutes and tries to whack her with a magazine with a huge smile on his face. Then Mobius shows up and tells Loki that they have a problem and instructs Loki to learn more about his variant and to find out where this Loki might be heading next. Loki figures out that the variant is hiding in apocalypses, and he goes to Mobius to tell him, and explains what he found out. They then go test Loki's theory, which proves to be correct. Then they track the variant to a supermarket in Alabama, which is about to be wiped out by a huge hurricane. There they also find C-20, who is very distraught. At the end of the episode, Loki meets his variant, who finally reveals herself. She then activates a portal using a device and walks through. Loki gets curious and ignores Mobius' calls to wait for him and follows the female Loki through the door. The female variant of Loki enters the TVA headquarters to kill the leaders of the TVA, called the Timekeepers, with Loki close behind her. He catches up to her, and they fight each other and end up traveling to a moon called Lamentus 1, which is about to be destroyed by a planet nearby. Loki and his variant fight over a device called a temp pad, which allows one to travel between time and space, but the temp pad is dead and has to be charged. They then have to work together to find something powerful enough to charge the temp pad. As they are traveling to find a power source, Loki keeps calling the variant Loki, in which she tells her not to call her that and tells him that her name is Sylvie. They then find a small building and see if it was strong enough to charge the temp pad, but they meet some woman and she tells Loki and Sylvie about a train station a few miles away which is taking people to a transport located in town so the citizens can escape the moon before it's destroyed. Loki and Sylvie walk for several miles towards the train station, where they sneak aboard a train. On the train, they sit at a table and talk about themselves. They are soon discovered, and a fight breaks out. Then Loki is thrown out of the train and lands on his stomach, breaking the TemPad that he hid from Sylvie earlier in the episode. Sylvie jumps off the train after Loki because he has a TemPad. Loki tries to fix it, but it falls apart and basically disintegrates. Sylvie gets mad, and Loki goes to apologize, and they come up with a plan to steal the transport in order to charge the TemPad and escape, fully aware of what's about to happen to everyone inhabiting the moon. They then walk the long trip to town where Loki and Sylvie talk about the TVA and what she plans on doing. In this conversation, Sylvie tells Loki that everyone who works for the TVA are variants who never had a choice to work at the organization. This, of course, shocks Loki. During the last few minutes of the episode, they soon arrive at the town and fight through the crowds while utter chaos and destruction is happening around them to get to the transport. But once they are feet away from the transport, it is destroyed. And Sylvie and Loki are stranded with no way of escape. This episode starts off with Judge Renslayer taking an elevator that leads to the Timekeeper's throne room, where she is haunted by the memory of herself going to arrest a young Sylvie as a hunter, and how she failed to get Sylvie trialed. She is also very scared to face the Timekeepers. After she talks with the Timekeepers, she is met by Mobius, who is waiting for her, and he asks her about Hunter C20, and Renslayer tells him that she is dead, and that after Sylvie took control of her mind, C20 went crazy, which caused her death. Renslayer then orders Mobius to locate the variants and bring them in for questioning. Mobius and Hunter B-15 locate the variants. Sylvie and Loki are rescued/captured by the TVA, and they are both interrogated. In Loki's interrogation room, Mobius allows Loki to tell him everything that happened, but when Loki tells him that everyone at the TVA are variants, Mobius doesn't believe him and sends Loki into a bad memory prison, as quoted by Loki. While Loki is in the time loop bad memory prison, Mobius is conflicted about what Loki said and investigates on C20's death by stealing Renslayer's TemPad, then heading to the library to find out what really happened with C20. He discovers what C20 found out, that everyone in the TVA are variants, and realizes Loki was right and goes to talk to Loki. After Mobius and Loki walk out of Loki's prison, they are met by an unhappy Judge Renslayer and some other TVA hunters, where Renslayer orders a hunter to prune Mobius. Meanwhile, Hunter B-15 is conflicted about Sylvie giving her a memory of her past life and goes to talk to her, and Sylvie shows B-15 her life before the TVA. Then they join forces. Loki and Sylvie are taken to the Timekeepers by Judge Renslayer to be deleted. But B-15 comes to the rescue, and a fight breaks out. After Sylvie knocks out Renslayer, and Loki kills the guards, Sylvie throws her sword at one of the Timekeepers' heads, cutting it off. Then the other Timekeepers start laughing, then shut down, and it is revealed that the Timekeepers are just robots. Loki then tries to tell Sylvie about his feeling for her, when Renslayer comes up behind him and deletes him. Then Sylvie gets the upper hand on Renslayer, knocking her to the ground and demanding her to explain everything. The episode ends with Loki waking up on the ground in a strange place where he is facing 4 variants of himself. We begin the episode with Loki waking up and seeing 4 variants of himself, and they tell him to come with them to safety from a giant purple cloud monster called Eliath. Loki is freaking out and asking a bunch of questions, but then goes with them to their hideout. Meanwhile, back at the TVA, Sylvie is talking with Renslayer in the trial room, with Renslayer stalling for time until some hunters arrive. When the hunters come in the room, Sylvie takes Renslayer's prune device, along with a TemPad, and prunes herself to meet with Loki in a place Renslayer calls the Void. Back in the Void, Loki and his variants are having a conversation. But when Loki explains his plans to the others, they laugh at him. Then Loki walks away and climbs a ladder that leads outside, but a group of Lokis is standing and staring down at him. Then a huge fight breaks out, and Classic Loki, Kid Loki, Alligator Loki, and Loki Escapes, where Classic Loki agrees to help Loki get to Goliath, and that was it. During that time, Sylvie wakes up in an old school bus with the cloud monster catching up to her, and she connects to it and sees a citadel. Then a car speeds towards her, and someone opens the door for her to get in, and we see that it is Mobius driving the car. They then drive towards the cloud monster to search for Loki. Loki, Classic Loki, Kid Loki, and Alligator Loki stand and wait for something else to show up in the void for Goliath to destroy. When it does happen, Loki realizes that his plan might not work. Then Mobius and Sylvie show up. Then they come up with their plan to enchant Goliath. At the end of the episode, Loki and Sylvie join hands, successfully enchanting Goliath, who reveals the citadel. Loki and Sylvie walk toward the citadel, still holding hands. In the beginning of the episode, Loki and Sylvie walk to the doors of the citadel. A few minutes later, the doors open for them, and they walk in with swords in hand, where they are jump-scared by Miss Minutes, who greets them and offers them their deepest desires, to which Loki and Sylvie decline. Back at the TVA, Ravonna Renslayer is given instructions by Miss Minutes from the person behind the TVA. At the Citadel, Loki and Sylvie walk through a hallway that leads to a huge room with statues. Then an elevator sets down, and the doors open and reveal a man called He Who Remains. He tells Loki and Sylvie to come with him so they can talk. In the elevator, Sylvie tries to kill him, but he dodges out of the way using a device on his hand. The elevator's door opens, and He Who Remains is standing in front of the door and invites them inside his office where they can talk. He Who Remains talks to them about how he started the TVA and how it's necessary because it protects the multiverse from threats of its own variants, and offers them two options. The first option is kill him and risk a multiversal war, or to take his place and run the TVA. Sylvie is set on killing him because she is tired of the TVA taking away people's lives. Loki, on the other hand, is afraid of what might happen if they were to kill He Who Remains, and rather take his place, just to be safe. Sylvie then tries to kill He Who Remains, but Loki steps in the way and tries to stop her. Sylvie starts fighting Loki, and Loki tries to reason with her and suggests that they think before they come to a decision, and worries about the consequences of killing He Who Remains. However, Sylvie is set on finishing what she started and claims that Loki just wants the throne. Loki tells her that he's not and begs her again to stop and think before acting. Sylvie doesn't listen and continues to attack Loki to get to He Who Remains, and then uses magic to blast Loki out of the way. When Sylvie is just about to swing her sword at He Who Remains, Loki appears in front of her and calmly tells her to stop. Loki tells her that he understands how she feels and tells her that he cares for her and wants her to be okay. Sylvie drops her sword and kisses Loki, and then she activates a portal with He Who Remains tempad and pushes Loki through it and closes it. Sylvie then stabs He Who Remains through the stomach and tells her that he'll see her soon, then dies. Sylvie then drops to the floor and starts crying. Back at the TVA, Loki is sitting on the ground sad and reflecting on what just happened. Then he gets up and runs to go find Mobius. During this time, the TVA is in chaos, with staff members running around trying to fix the timelining after it went control. Loki finds Mobius and Hunter B-15 in the library, and he frantically tells Mobius what just happened. But Mobius and B-15 do not recognize him and call for security. The episode ends with Loki turning and seeing a giant statue of Kang the Conqueror in place of the Timekeepers with shock and fear on his face. Alright, that was my full recap of Loki Season 1, and you are now all caught up and ready for Season 2. If you made it this far in the video, thank you so much, because I put in lots of effort and hours of work to get this video created for you all. Put a green heart in the comments if you made it to this point in the video so I know you have watched the whole video. Well, I'm not going to keep y'all here any longer, so goodbye and thanks for watching.